This episode is brought to you by The Build, a new podcast from the guys behind Sincera, Mike O'Sullivan and Ian Myers. They built their company by figuring out clever solutions to a few important ad tech problems in their industry. And that's exactly what this show is about. Mike and Ian interview some of the smartest tech minds in the biz to hear about how they identified opportunities, solved their hardest challenges, and grew their businesses in the process. Listen to The Build with Mike O'Sullivan wherever you get your podcasts. This episode is sponsored by Plod AI. We've all been there. You're days away from a deadline and you remember a brilliant idea from a brainstorming session, but you can't find it in your notes. It's frustrating, confusing, and frankly, a waste of time. Recently, I've integrated Plod AI, that's P-L-A-U-D, into my daily workflow, and it's a game changer for staying organized. Plod isn't just an app, it's a hardware-software powerhouse. I use the Note Pro for phone calls, Note Pen for my in-person meetings, and the new Plod desktop app for all my virtual sessions. With one click, it records everything and generates an accurate, searchable transcript. But the real magic is the Ask Plod feature. I can literally ask questions about a meeting from 3 weeks ago and get an instant answer. It turns every conversation into a searchable asset for me and my team. Stop taking notes and focus. Turn your meetings into actionable insights with the world's most advanced AI note taker. Learn more at plod.ai. That's Plaud.ai. And use the promo code CODESTORY, all one word, to get 10% off your purchase. Today's episode is brought to you by .tech domains, and this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, I was building my startup and went hunting for that perfect .com and found next to nothing. So I did what every founder does. Settled. Here's what I wish someone had told me. You're building a tech startup. Just get a .tech domain. It instantly tells investors and customers what you're about. Don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice. This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If your team is collecting large volumes of logs, metrics, and traces, but still struggling to get timely answers, Mesmo can help. Mesmo is an active telemetry platform that processes and enriches observability data in real time before it's stored or analyzed. That means lower data volume, lower cost, and faster root cause analysis across your existing observability tools. To see how it works, get a demo at mesmo.com/codestory. That's MEZMO.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. If you are building with AI coding tools, but your features keep breaking, you need to check out BrainGrid. It is the product management agent for AI builders. BrainGrid turns messy ideas into clear specs, tasks, and prompts that coding agents like Cursor and Claude can actually build the right way. Ship real software, not fragile prototypes. Start free at braingrid.ai. Hello, listeners. Today we are dropping another episode in our chat series, specifically on the developer side, hearing from those scaling the solutions themselves. In this episode, we are talking with Pavel Schyokotov, founding engineer specializing in voice-first conversational AI products. Pavel is going to take us through his experience as an agency founder, leading into building voice-driven consumer AI. Pavel, thank you for being on the show today. Thanks for being on Code Story.
Thank you, Noel.
Excited to have you here. Excited to dive into your experience leading into Sophie Connects and all those things. Before we do, tell me about your path to this point. You've had an unusual path into startup engineering. You started as a developer, you co-founded an agency, and then worked with clients across Europe, all the things. And today you're building AI native consumer products around conversational interfaces and user engagement. How has that journey shaped how you think about product engineering?
So basically, when working as an agency, you have to fulfill the client's requirements, right? if you don't personally think that some of them lead to right outcome from the product perspective, or the product itself is not needed in the market, still it's like not your decision. You can advise, introduce improvements or changes, but the end decision is not yours, it's the client's. And while the final product is built by you, it is not owned by you. However, while working in a startup on a product as a founding engineer, that implies that your success equals product success. And it asks you basically to think deeply on each decision, keeping in mind all the moving parts that are in the startup. For example, how you change here would influence the marketing strategy. You change some interface while the interface is shown in ads. Will it work right? Will it come out right? While when you get a change request in the product as an agency, you imply that the customer has thought about it previously, so you should just change it and you're done, basically.
I appreciate you walking through the differences there. I'm curious about the agency years, right? So before joining a startup, you spent years building products for clients rather than yourself. And you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but you described your role as sitting between technical and non-technical stakeholders. You're basically translating business problems into technical solutions. You're extracting requirements, you're making plans, all those sorts of things. What did those agency years teach you about product development that most engineers never learn?
I think it's the product thinking. As I work closely with the clients and their product teams, like you see how different companies think, what they value in the products, and how they rate the problems that occur on the way. I wouldn't say that most engineers never learned it. Probably they do, but in a longer period of time, as they, for example, change their employers and work in different companies. While here I had a very intense experience and a lot of new knowledge during a short period of time. So you see what works and what doesn't. And that's probably one of the best things about working in an agency as a co-founder.
This episode is brought to you by The Build, a new podcast from the guys behind Sincera, Mike O'Sullivan and Ian Myers. They built their company by figuring out clever solutions to a few important ad tech problems in the industry, and that's exactly what this show is about. Mike and Ian interview some of the smartest tech minds at Magnite, Chalice, DoubleClick, and LiveRamp to hear about how they identified opportunities, solved their hardest challenges, and grew their businesses in the process. This show is for you if you've had some of these breakthrough moments yourself, or if you're seeking inspiration for the next one. Listen to The Build with Mike O'Sullivan wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by .tech Domains, and this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, when I was building my own tech startup, I went on the hunt for that elusive .com. Looked high, looked low, and guess what I found? Nothing. What I did find cost me an arm and a leg. So I did what every founder does under pressure. Threw in extra letters, settled for the less than optimal name. And here's what I wish someone had said to me back then. Noah, you're building a tech startup. Just get a .tech domain. Tech startup, .tech domain. It could not be more obvious. It tells investors, customers, and anyone who looks at your website, really, that tech is at the core of your build. And I've kicked myself plenty since, especially when I see the clean and sharp names tech companies have landed on .tech. Nothing.tech, 1x.tech, Aurora.tech, CES.tech, Ultra.tech, Alice.tech, Neon.tech, Blaze.tech, Pi.tech. You get the idea. So take it from someone who learned it the hard way. If you're building a tech startup, don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice.
No, that makes total sense. As a former agency founder myself, I can relate to all the things you're speaking of there. And then there are things that maybe that other developers have learned, but they're definitely crystallized when you're running an agency or building projects for other folks. Okay, most AI products today still assume a screen, an app, or a chatbot interface, right? That's the things in the media for the most part, but your team has made a much more radical bet. You're building a consumer product where the entire user journey happens through phone calls and AI conversations. What convinced you that voice could be the primary interface rather than just another feature?
So when we started the project, the age barrier was a bit higher. It was around 60 years old. And I think during the product tests and early exploration stage, the average age of the users was around 65. So under our assumption, these people are more used to calling each other rather than swiping or texting. Also, common dating interfaces use swiping or similar interfaces, and there is a tiredness in the market for that. When users have Tinder-like user experience, they associate it with their prior experience in different apps, and they associate it with dating straight away. And sometimes that was, for example, something bad happened, or it was just not a pleasant experience, and they went out from using that app. So I think using voice here was a differentiator because it introduces users to something completely new that they haven't seen previously.
That makes sense. Let's stay on that a minute because I want to dig into building a product with no visual UI. Most engineers spend their careers designing buttons, screens, and workflows. You're building a system where users never touched an interface at all. What are the hardest engineering and product challenges there that emerge when conversation itself becomes the product?
That's a great question. I think we can split these challenges into separate categories. First is the user's experience when talking to the agent, right? So they call and AI answers that. And we had to work hard on the latency, on the human-like interaction, so it doesn't feel like talking to a simple bot. And we have succeeded here, as many users even talked on different personal topics, like talking to a close friend. However, this creates a separate issue. Each call with the user has a goal. You need to get some information on them or schedule a date or introduce someone. And when users talk on some different topics, you have to politely get them back on track, as tokens and compute are being spent on each call, and one call can cost you like $1, for example. So if you double the length of the call, it's already $2 and you get the same outcome, same information. So you have to work on your strategy there. Secondly, when you have an app, you can send notifications for free to drive retention and not let users forget about you, so they get back to you in your product. And having no app implies that you have to use calls or text messages, which is also not free. So some optimization should be done on each step. For example, text messages are charged based on segments. So if you make a slightly bigger text message, it can cost you double over a slightly shorter text message. So you have to think about each word that you put in there. And thirdly, the main challenge was getting both parties on the line at the same time, so they could have a conversation or a date. And I think this was one of the hardest parts.
Yeah, no doubt. That's a challenge there. I'm sure there's more challenges in the reality of production voice systems in general. A lot of people imagine voice AI as simply connecting speech to text in an LLM. You actually had to run these systems in production, handle real users, phone networks, interruptions, latency, all the things, all the messy edge cases. Tell me about a problem that seemed trivial on paper, but became surprisingly difficult at scale.
I would say that one problem was handling the voicemail, not the latency, not the scaling parts, because you could previously thought of them, but facing the voicemail was one of the unexpected problems. When we started, we thought that a simple flag in Twilio, this is a service for handling phone calls. So they had a flag for detecting. We thought it would handle that, but the error rate there was very high. So we had to rebuild it and create from scratch. We built a multi-layer system that uses many techniques, from simple heuristics to base detection. And a lot of effort came into building this voicemail detection system, because voicemail actually could ruin a lot of business metrics and fail the user experience.
This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If you're responsible for reliability, performance, or platform architecture, you already know the problem. Telemetry volume is growing faster than teams can manage it. Mesmo addresses this by moving observability upstream. Instead of storing everything and asking questions later, Mesmo processes telemetry in motion, filtering, transforming, and enriching logs, metrics, and traces before they reach your observability backend. The result is cleaner data, reduced ingestion costs, and faster root cause analysis using the tools you already rely on. Mesmo integrates with platforms like Datadog, Dynatrace, and open source stacks, giving teams more control without adding operational overhead. This is especially useful for platform engineers and SREs supporting complex distributed systems where context and speed matter. To see how active telemetry works in practice, get a demo at mesmo.com/codestory. That's mezmo.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. Building with AI coding tools is exciting until the moment things start breaking. You ask for a small change and suddenly 3 other features stop working. AI gets confused, misses edge cases, and loses track of your intent. The problem is not code generation. The problem is planning. That is why BrainGrid exists. BrainGrid acts as your product management agent. It writes clear specification, maps UX flows, asks the clarifying questions you forgot to ask, and breaks big ideas into engineering-grade tasks that AI coding tools can build reliably. It guides Cursor, Claude Code, Replit, Windsurf, and others so they deliver features that work and keep working. Founders use BrainGrid to build real AI-native SaaS products without a technical background. If you want reliable features instead of fragile prototypes, try BrainGrid for free at braingrid.ai. That's braingrid.ai.
Yeah, sure. No, that makes sense. You don't think about that aspect of it. So one thing that stands out about your work is the audience, right? Many consumer tech companies optimize for the younger, highly digital users, kind of the easier route to go, but your product focuses heavily on people in their 40s, 50s, and beyond, which makes sense with the voice being what they're used to. What did you learn about technology, adoption, trust, and in general user behavior from building for a demographic that much of the tech industry tends to ignore?
I think the good thing about this demographic is that less companies or projects targeted, which gives you a room to grow and it implies less competition. But there is a reason for that. 50 and 60 plus people are often less tech savvy and have less experience with apps or digital products. So you have to thoroughly work on each step and each feature. And one trivial example is that when we have checked the replace on the app, we saw people zooming in a lot. So we have decided to increase the size of the fonts and many other elements. And also trust is definitely lower as this demographic is often targeted by scammers. So you have to build your trust there.
Yeah, building trust is super critical with all the users, but there's a little bit of hesitancy maybe with the demographic you're targeting. Okay, it's clear you're the founding engineer, and that can mean different things at different companies, right? In your case, it seems to sit somewhere between engineering, product strategy, experimentation, and company building. What does being a founding engineer actually look like day to day? And how is it different from being, say, a senior software engineer?
I think a very different thing for me was that, especially during early stages, every day started with a review of yesterday's user sessions. The dates that we ran were in the evening hours for the US. So for me in Europe, those were night hours. Sometimes I had to monitor them live to see what is going wrong, how users connect, what fails and what goes smoothly, and sometimes even make changes on the go. Then in the morning, review the outcomes with the team and make decisions based on that, like changing something in the dates that are upcoming the following night. So basically, the main difference was working very closely with the product and constantly monitoring it. It's not done once you push the changes to the production. It's like a constant feedback loop.
Sure, it certainly is a constant feedback loop. Okay, so let's switch to the topic that everybody is buzzing about and talking about, AI, right? And building products in an AI era. AI tools are making engineers dramatically more productive, but they're also changing how products get built. And you've said that AI can execute many tasks, but understanding the problem and taking responsibility for decisions still belongs to humans. I would double that, triple that, amen to that. Where do you think people are overestimating AI today? And where are they still underestimating it?
I think we can say about overestimation and underestimation in many fields, but for me, the main thing is I think AI lacks creative thinking, which is a crucial thing when you build a completely new product and have to reimagine how things should work. However, we underestimate the speed of development of AI. So if today you think that AI can do something, you shouldn't be stuck with this opinion in a month or in 2 months or probably in a week when a new thing comes out and disrupts a new field. You have to be flexible and re-estimate your opinion. For example, AI content field, AI-generated content, half a year ago was very different from the one in the content itself was very different from the one that you can make today. as several new models came out, Clean 3.0 or Seedance 2.0, and the quality of produced content is improving at such high speed that if yesterday you believe that you have to hire people for creating some videos, maybe today it's not the case, and you're missing out on low production costs and high scalability that new models provide. So basically, you have to constantly re-estimate your opinion.
Yeah, that's well said. It moves and shifts and shakes, and you have to consistently be checking in on it. That's for certain.
This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Your coding agents have access to your code base. Maybe you even connected other tools via MCPs. But access doesn't mean context. Agents can't reason across MCPs. They don't know your architectural decisions, your team's patterns, or why the API was shaped the way it is. So agents look in the wrong place and deliver bad outputs. Then you spend time correcting. More loops, more tokens. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory.
Okay, I got one more question. Pavel, you're looking ahead. You spent the last few years working at the intersection of conversational AI, consumer products, growth systems, and startup experimentation. Looking forward 3 to 5 years, say, what do you think the most important category of AI native consumer product will be? And what capabilities will those products need that don't exist yet?
I think maybe you heard about the dynamic user interfaces. I think that they might have a big future. For example, when I was working as an agency, in an agency, we have to adapt the products for the customers and their needs, while the core of the product could be the same. Different clients require different tweaks and add-ons. For each business, we could do a new version of the product, slightly or heavily adapted to their needs while keeping the core and the idea. But this required work of multiple engineers and a lot of time, and businesses paid for that. While as the cost of software engineering are going down due to AI, we might see this for the consumer tech, an app that adapts to your needs and everyone have a slightly different version of it. This could drive the retention rate and the LTV, and the creators of the app, the startups, wouldn't think a lot about the trade-offs of changing certain features. So you don't think when you change some button or remove a feature that it could drive lower retention rates. Some users might need this feature, while when you have a dynamic user interface, everyone has what they need. You respond to more pains and you have a higher retention rate and you can address a bigger market.
All that registers. Pavel, thank you for being on the show today. It's clear your experience has been really pivotal to what you're building. You've spent many years in an agency building solutions for clients, and that really taught you the product lifecycle, taught you product development, translating user requirements into technical solutions. And that's a skill that is paying off dividends for you as you build this new system for Sophie Connects and designing things for a certain demographic, really focusing on voice and then moving into where AI is going to go. I think your point of view there in keeping up with AI and constantly reevaluating what you're overestimating and underestimating makes total sense to me. So, Pavel, I really appreciate you being on the show. I think it has been a fantastic conversation.
Thank you, Noel. Had a great time with you.
Pavel's experience in building solutions for clients really built a foundation in delivering market-backed solutions. In doing so, it's helping him and his team build a solution that not only meets a need, but meets one of a demographic that has been typically overlooked. If you'd like to connect with Pavel, check the show notes for all the appropriate links. And thanks again for listening.
Capital One's tech team isn't just talking about multi-agentic AI. They already deployed one. It's called Chat Concierge, and it's simplifying car shopping. Using self-reflection and layered reasoning with live API checks, it doesn't just help buyers find a car they love. It helps schedule a test drive, get pre-approved for financing, and estimate trade-in value. Advanced, intuitive, and deployed. That's how they stack. That's technology at Capital One.
What is that?
Yeah, it's a World Cup holder.
Like the soccer tournament World Cup?
Holder. For the world. Fits every car, holds every cup.
It has a Carvana logo?
Carvana made it. They buy and sell cars, so they made a car cup holder. So, got any good cups lately?
I used to, just couldn't figure out where in the world to put them.
The World Cup holder, brought to you by Carvana, proud sponsors of the World Cup holder.
Sign up today to win yours at cup-holder2026.com. Not authorized or endorsed by FIFA. Not a real product. For parity and fair use purposes only.